The more time I spend in the backcountry, the more I feel the need to polish my backcountry skills. As I've gotten more into route finding, I've started to realize how much I rely on my phone for navigation purposes. Over the last year or so, I've begun a journey to better understand maps and compasses so that I feel confident navigating even without electronic assistance. This pursuit led to taking a backcountry navigation course through Colorado Mountain College. The course took place in the Needles district of Canyonlands National Park, and since I was already out there, I decided to tack on a few days of backpacking after the course ended. This video is a recap of that trip and some much needed time in the desert for my first backpacking trip of the year. Our first day of class was at Needles Outpost, a campground just outside the park which I'd heard of from following haydukers over the past few years. We also took a day hike in the park to practice our skills and prepare to use them in the field the next 2 days. Our route was the Chesler Par Loop, one of the most popular hikes in the Needles district. We took off from the parking lot as a crew of 8 students and 2 instructors with at least 80 liters of water between the 10 of us. We stopped in the shade frequently to practice our skills, weighing down our maps with gear so they didn't blow away. We took bearings, compared the topography on our map to what we were seeing in the field, and I realized my astigmatism might be affecting my ability to take an accurate bearing. I tried it a few different ways and eventually found a method that made me more accurate. I've realized one of my favorite parts of taking outdoor ed classes is getting to know the other students. It's kind of like through hiking, where you know you at least have one thing in common: a love for the outdoors. But each person brings a unique perspective and excitement to the learning. We passed through beautiful terrain, including a small slot canyon. We took most of the day to go about 4 miles. Between water and shade breaks and practicing with our map and compasses, it filled most of our time. As someone who is used to packing as many miles as possible into hikes, it was nice to slow down and take things in. I'd been pretty nervous about carrying 8 liters of water with my frameless 30-liter pack, but it proved to be a non-issue. With about 1.5 days of food, no stove, and only an emergency bivvy instead of a tent, wait felt like any other shorter backpacking trip. By late afternoon, we made it into Chesler Park and to our campsites. We had dinner, practiced some more skills, and cowboy camped under a full moon. None of us got great sleep because of the intermittent wind and brightness of the moon, which took turns making their presence known. We decided to get going early the next morning, hoping to beat the heat of the day. Canyonlands has shade, but not always covering the trail, and we didn't want to bake in the sun more than necessary. One of the first features we came to was an impressive slot canyon. We'd been assigned to use satellite imagery and topos to create this route on Google Earth, and I remembered not quite being sure of the correct route through these rocks. Now it made sense.
Say hi!
Yeah. Yo.
That's where I was like, it's too far. And it's slippery. After the slot canyon, we looked for a good spot to do our first field exam, and I looked forward to a very important feature I knew was coming up: a pit toilet. I successfully avoided using a wag bag, at least for now. Let's see. Oh, yay! And we were tested on the mapping skills we'd learned over the last few days. We continued our hike out, always taking care to stay on trail and avoid the ancient and fragile cryptobiotic soil that is so prevalent in this area. We made our way up and over more slick rock and took our final test on triangulation. As we approached the car, I was sad to be leaving my new friends and classmates, but stoked that I knew I still had several more days in Canyonlands. My friend from the PCT, Stickers, met me at the Needles campground in the park. I'd actually already run into her on our way out while she was doing a trail run of the same loop my class was backpacking. We car camped for the night, caught up on each other's lives, and discussed our plans for the next few days. We also went on a quick hike right from our campsite to catch the sunset. The next morning, we consulted with the rangers and decided to adjust our plans for hiking in Salt Creek Canyon. There was rain coming and we didn't want to be stuck in the canyon in case it got bad. Flash flooding is definitely a thing in this area, and when it thunderstorms, it can bring a lot of rain. We picked a new campsite thanks to a last-minute cancellation and made a sort of figure-8 loop with an extra loop in the middle. This impromptu route ended up being fantastic and took us through several different canyons within the park. The incoming weather also ended up creating a perfect climate for backpacking in the desert. It was overcast and windy, which meant it never got too hot. that. As someone who is certainly not heat acclimated, I was grateful for that. We made our way down the Peekaboo Trail and into Lost Canyon. Hiking through sand was a good reminder to be appreciative of the slick rock when we had it, and hiking through brush reminded me I'm still on the search for the perfect hiking pant. We made our way up and out of Lost Canyon, climbing over a plateau and into Wooden Shoe Canyon. I love how the elevation change in this park never seems to be more than a couple hundred feet and always leads you to some incredible rock formations. The skies looked ominous, but never materialized into any precipitation. Honestly, the weather could not have been more ideal. We made our way over to Big Spring Canyon via another slick rock saddle. If you want the scenic parts of Canyonlands, just look for the saddles. They don't disappoint. We gotta cross this big old crack in the ground. And there's some debris caught there. And it just kind of goes and goes and goes. You could cross down there too. Oh, I hate that. At our determining trail junction, we decided to hike straight to camp for a 10-mile day. Our original trip plan involved 13 miles on day 1 and 5 miles out the next day in order to optimize water and food, but we got in a later start than anticipated and weren't feeling ambitious about hiking until sunset. If we had enough water and food, we could still see all the same things, just with 10 miles that day and 10 miles the next. We'd brought 6 liters, but the overcast weather made us optimistic that we could still swing it. We decided to take stock at camp that night and could hike 2 miles back to the car in the morning as a backup plan if we needed to. Our campsite down in Big Shoe Canyon gave the illusion of shelter, but wind still ripped through and deposited copious amounts of desert sand into both of our tents. But did you really go backpacking in the desert if you don't come home with at least a little sand in your gear? We cooked dinner and then scrambled around on the slick rocks behind our tent site. We found a spectacular view of our site from above and enjoyed the beginning of the sunset. The woodpecker started at exactly 7 a.m. and said, "No snoozing your alarms today, ladies." Let's see if we can get him again.
Ooh, that was a different pitch.
That was a different pitch. I slept better than I had all trip, but still woke up with the wind a few times. I wanted to get an early-ish start in case it was hotter on day 2, especially since we were working with limited water rations. We decided we had enough to do our 10-mile loop without going back to the car for food or water. We packed up camp and started hiking around 9. The high today is going to be 68 degrees, at least based on where our campsite was. Or 65 degrees actually, I think. And so it's pretty great weather for Canyonlands. 30% chance of rain starting at 2, but I think we'll be done hiking by then. And I might get my first wag bag experience today. I found a wash to use my first wag bag, and honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I'll spare you any additional details, but don't let it scare you out of backpacking in the desert. We made our way out of Big Shoe Canyon and toward the Chesler Park Trail where we overlapped with the slot canyon I'd hiked with my class on day 1. We saw more people on this small stretch of the Chesler Park Loop than we saw in the rest of the trip combined. From there, we made our way up Elephant Canyon and then rejoined the Big Spring Canyon Trail. This was probably one of my favorite areas on the entire route. Towering formations lined the left-hand side of the canyon as we climbed, and I thought about the Fremont and Anasazi people who have been in this area for centuries. We picked our way through the sick rock and up another saddle. I love this style of hiking. Down into a canyon, through the canyon, up and over a saddle, and down into another canyon. Each canyon is unique, and each saddle has different but equally stunning views. This time there was a ladder on either side of the saddle to help us up and over the steep, overhanging slick rock. Moments like these make me appreciative of the national park infrastructure. We made our way back toward the junction where we decided to head to camp early the day before and discovered another small slot canyon. We ran into other hikers who asked if we had the weather and told them we checked that morning and it wasn't supposed to rain until 2. It was only 11, but shortly after that we felt some drizzling. I think purely because I put my rain jacket on, it never materialized into anything more than a few drops. That afternoon, we decided to make our way back to Moab so we could visit Arches in the morning and get a shower that night. Driving out of Canyonlands is almost as wonderful as hiking through it. These kinds of drives always leave me marveling at how much there is to explore and how little time I have to do it. I often get overwhelmed with how much there is to see, but I try to be thankful that I get to see any of it at all.